Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Friday evening to you, as I've done before on some Friday evenings, just to help get the episode out there quicker. I decided to do an impromptu live with y'all here tonight. And the topic for this evening, yesterday I covered here's the things that the Packers aren't doing well. We've got trends to say that it may not go well, etc., etc., etc. But today is the counter. The reasons why we have to believe in the Green Bay Packers, besides just the obvious. Or another way to kind of frame this, if you will, is if this stuff happens, then they should be bona fide contenders, perhaps even finding themselves as Super Bowl champions at the end of this coming season. As is kind of the norm on these Friday Night Lives, and I still have a topic to get to. If you're here, if you're in the comments, please feel free to say hi. I'll probably say hi back. But I'm not necessarily going to address every single comment because, I'm doing the thing here. But still, thank you so much for joining me here. I do see Janelle, Steve, hello to you both. Do hope you're having a great Friday evening. So, one bit of news that I did want to tell you right away is, it is time to pour one out for the Alex Magoo experiment. The quarterback turned wide receiver, he was waived today with the injury designation, and in turn, they signed two wide receivers, one being Jalen Wayne and the other being Rory Starkey. Now, the Packers did make some headlines this morning, especially Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, said that the Packers are working out Jake Fromm, who's like a quarterback who's actually got a little bit of experience. Turns out, as Bill Huber kind of indicated right away, the workout today wasn't necessarily about Fromm. They more just needed someone to throw to the wide receivers that they really wanted to bring in. And those two wide receivers happened to be Starkey and Wayne. Now, with that signing, the Packers roster is now full. They're at the full capacity of 91 individuals because they still do get that exemption for Adumagu. So 91 individuals. I will admit, adding two wide receivers when looking over this roster, a little curious, but at the same time, you need a lot of wide receivers to go through training camp. It's a very heavily utilized position, both in special teams and offense. And keep in mind, last year, they had a whole bunch of wide receivers additional to who we thought, in terms of there was Danny Davis for a stretch and others. So Starkey, Wayne, they'll get their chances, but man, is it a tall, tall order to actually make the roster or make an impact. So, got a couple of Steve saying, Jake Fromm said, yeah. And then Packers Kingdom saying, I want a Ricky Pearsall, who the Niners drafted. Oh, yeah, I remember Ricky around draft time. I think he was the first round pick of the Niners, right, if I remember correctly. I get it, but the Packers wide receiver collective is such a strong unit already. To add to it would have been great, but I think the offensive line did kind of present itself as a higher need at the time. And also saying always be prepared. Yeah, definitely something that they got to plan on. So, all right, now it is time for the topic of the day. The Packers absolutely can win a Super Bowl if these five things happen to go their way. Okay, and I'm going to say a couple things right here at the forefront. Really kind of want to get ahead here. One, I am making some baseline assumptions, such as they need to win games. No freaking kidding. I'm well aware of that. That kind of thing. Already covered, right? But then the other thing is I didn't want to make today a complete mirror to all of the stuff that I covered yesterday. If you checked out yesterday's video about why they wouldn't win the Super Bowl, why that would be difficult or what have you. Such as yesterday, I covered all the missed tackling numbers, etc. So I didn't want to include in today's video, well, if they tackle, they'll win. Yeah, it's a little easy, right? So I found 5 reasons that are separate from that I wanted to cover. So let's dive in and cover number 1, and that would be Jordan Love. See, I've seen a lot of talk lately because this is a very popular topic. They can be contenders. They can win the Super Bowl if everyone's kind of doing their own spin on that right now. It's the perfect thing to do right before training camp. But everyone seems to be saying that Jordan Love needs to ascend to the next level, to a more elite level. I don't necessarily think so. I think the second half Jordan Love that we saw is plenty good to win a Super Bowl. And here's why. From weeks 10 to 18, not even including his absolute dismantling of Dallas, right? There were 29 quarterbacks who had at least 178 dropbacks. That's half of the NFL's leader over that same span of time. 29 dudes who had that many dropbacks, just weeks 10 to 18. Here's a list of where Jordan Love ranked in all of the various stats. Completion percentage, 6th at 68%. Yards, 2nd with 2,438. Touchdowns, 2nd with 20. Interceptions, tied for 3rd best with only 3. PFF passing grade, 3rd with 90.7. Big time throws, 1st with 25. Big time throw percentage, tied for 1st with 7.6%. Turnover worthy play percentage, 13th with 2.6%. Passer rating, 4th with 107.6. All pretty good, except for his turnover-worthy percentage, which frankly with Jordan Love is always going to be a little high. That's just his gunslingerness, or the Matthew Staffordness, as I saw a couple people talking about earlier today. But now let's account for how was he under pressure. Of course, as you get into playoff football, you're going to be going against what is presumed to be tougher defenses, maybe defenses that get after the quarterback more. How was Jordan Love in those settings? Well, in yards, he was 4th, touchdowns tied for 1st, interceptions tied for 2nd, big time throws 1st, passer rating 4th. Okay, well, let's take away the pressure. How did he do when everything was clean? Yards 1st, touchdowns tied 4th, QB rating 5th. Okay, yeah. So I understand the argument that it was a small sample size from Love. But if you include the playoffs, he ended the season basically on this tear of 21 touchdowns compared to only 3 interceptions. Yes, it was a small sample size over the duration of a half season, but at the same time, the peak that Jordan Love approached is incredibly hard to do for any player on a hot streak. The league's best didn't match a lot of his numbers. Given just this whole collective of stats, we can easily say that just from weeks 10 to 18, not even including his great playoffs, he was absolutely a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. So it's not a matter of him needing to ascend to being better than he was. It's more so just a matter of do it over the whole span, or continue to be who he was over that stretch. Number 2, the offense needs to find balance at the right times and in the right ways. Holy vag, right? Yeah, I get it. But I went over yesterday how much the Packers just don't like running the ball inside the 10. There were only like 6 teams in the NFL that actually did it more than them. And most of which, not great football teams. Okay, it seems to be this trend. The Packers were not that excellent in the red zone last year, and they also happened to not run inside the 10. It was a very neat little correlation I found. But it's not just that. And plus, I couldn't find any data to back this up, but just think back to last year and a lot of Matt LaFleur's tenure as a play caller, right? There seems to be these stretches where like we go an entire quarter without running the ball, right? And then all of a sudden it's like LaFleur remembers that he has running backs and we see run, run, run. And it's 3 carries for a total of 1 yard. And it obviously didn't work. And then we punt the ball and then LaFleur's like, well, it didn't work. We'll come back to that in a quarter and a half. Right? It just, I couldn't find any data, but like anecdotally, doesn't that just feel like a lot of the wave of how Packer games seem to go? So balancing when they run, how they run, but it even goes deeper than this, okay? Not just running. Here's the Packers ranking on points per game divvied up by quarter. So in just first quarter scoring last year, first quarter scoring, they ranked 14th in the NFL with 4.6 points per game. Okay, just barely above the mid part. Second quarter, they dropped down to 23rd, only 6 points per game. Fourth quarter, 22nd, 5.6 points per game. But the third quarter, 7.6 points per game in the third quarter. First in the NFL. In fact, a full 1.5 higher than the team that finished in second, Jacksonville, in the third quarter. So the thing is, it's not just about running the ball inside the 10. It's not just about running the ball in the red zone. It's not just running the ball with the better frequency, like variation to it. It's just their point spread as well. The Packers offense going through games last year, the ebbs and flows of a season, was at times stagnant, but yet the third quarter was like this revelation where week in and week out, they could put up points in the third. So maybe some of the keys to making the offense even more consistent include running the ball inside the 10 more, but also whatever modifications you're doing for the third, let's try them in the first to open the game plan. Maybe ease up control of those first 15 like I talked about a lot on watch parties. But then also, don't get so submissive in quarters 2 and 4. It may be a winning ingredient for the Green Bay Packers. Next up, number 3. The right guard needs to be at least competent, right? And this is kind of a compliment to the rest of the offensive line. PFF ranks the Packers' offensive line in preseason rankings as 14th. Pro Football Network, 8th. Sharp Football Analysis, 6th. Right? Those are 3 of the largest bodies that are pretty well decently respected around the NFL in terms of ranking and placings. All above average for the Packers' offensive line. And as Brett Coleman points out, the famous YouTuber who talks football all the time, the NFL is finally beginning to wake up that competent guard play is actually one of the keys to a successful offense. So let's think of the Packers' offensive line. Like Rasheed Walker, started the year last year filling in for Bach. We really thought we had Dave Bakhtiari for a while. Remember that glorious day? And then Rasheed Walker filled in, and there was a lot of question marks about that, rotate with Yash a lot. But by the end of the season, Rasheed Walker has ascended to being one of the better pass blocking tackles in the NFL. Per PFF grade, he was top 25 in that regard. Per ESPN's win rate, he was up there with Trent Williams. And even per PFF's grading, again, to go back to that, he ranked better than Zach Tom in terms of pass blocking. So no, he's not Bakhtiari-esque yet, but you could make the argument that he certainly is a player on ascension. He's growing up boards. Okay, then let's take a look at Zach Tom, who certainly last year in his first full year as just a tackle blossomed into being pretty arguably, or not so arguably, a top 5 right tackle in the game. Elton Jenkins, same thing. Officially registered as good at football, right? We all could agree with that. And then center, Josh Myers. Yeah, okay, we pretty much know what he is at this point, right? The Packers may really appreciate how he does the line calls, pretty big part of his job, right? But I think we're far enough into his career now to say that Josh Myers, realistically, even if we hope better, is in most ways still a below average blocker for the center position. So now that leaves us with right guard. And I've spent all offseason talking about how the reputation around Sean Rhyan and how he played in the second half last year might be a little bit better than how he actually did play. Yeah, he had flashes in the run game, certainly, but pass game, pass pro, still very, very much a work in progress. John Runyon Jr., even in his worst year, was probably a little bit underappreciated for the performance that he gave the Packers last year. We just have not seen that huge progress from Sean Rhyan that he should be handed a guaranteed starting job all on his own. And I still believe Jordan Morgan's going to wind up starting there. There's others there too. But let's just keep in mind, right? Out of all of the spots on the offensive line, right guard is the one where there's some pretty massive question marks. And it doesn't mean that it won't be answered, but as of right now, it certainly is one of the cap battles that's going to be mostly contested. Because if it's not Ryan and he doesn't progress, or Morgan struggles because he's never played right guard, then all of a sudden, what do we do at right guard? Are we talking about Royce Newman? Jacob Monk? All of a sudden, the depth there gets real shaky real fast. Maybe UDFA Donovan Jennings. Maybe Andre Dillard kicks inside. We just don't know. And really, like right guard, it probably is still the least important position on the offensive line, especially in the LaFleurian offense. But they don't got to go much farther than just asking Josh Jacobs how much bad interior line play can completely derail an offensive game plan. He knew all too well last year. All right, let me just hit a couple comments as I see they're piling up here, and then get into the last two. Steven saying, let it be a great green and gold weekend. Right before it all begins on Monday. Yes, indeed. Packers Kingdom, a lot of people, fan favorites like a Dobbs, might have to get shipped because Packers don't pay wide receivers. Oh, yeah, they certainly value wide receiver less than the rest of the NFL. We've got pretty good data to say that for sure. Like a lot of teams really value that quarterback on a rookie contract. Right? They build that around that. Packers seem to do the same thing, except they're willing to pay their quarterback. They just don't really want to pay wide receivers top of the market. Right? And so I do think a couple years time, we will see some move on. Yeah. Steve saying balance will depend on the offensive line. The better offensive line, the better the balance. I would tend to agree. The one thing that I would just say is the Packers offensive line is built to be a pass blocking offensive line. It's been that way for a while. And that's very much how the entire offense is built, right? Pass first. So certainly, yes, on the whole, definitely. Captain Kebble's saying at dinner, grandma birthday dinner, but like the video, Latino people. I agree. Thanks, Capicles. Also, happy birthday, Grandma. Steve saying, I believe the run game and with Jacobs and Lloyd and Dillon will open up the pass game even more. Yeah, I tried. I really did, because I thought that there was going to be more correlation here, looking at Jordan Love's performance of exemplary passing games, along with when the Packers ran the ball more, were more productive on the ground. And I thought for sure, like, his best games, his cleanest games would come when there were tons of running yards, right? It didn't completely work out that way statistically. Like, I was ready to roll with that. And then the more I looked into it, the more I was like, oh no, they're actually pretty independent of each other. Now, of course, when Jones was ripping off 120 yards a game, yeah, that helps, right? But for the rest of the season, there weren't tremendous statistical correlations there. Hey fam, what's Packers no longer have the nicest hair. Been a long run from Clay Matthews today. Bakhtiari. Hey man, I'm just going to say, in terms of Sean Ryan, don't forget about Sean Ryan this way. Dude's got curls. Dude's got Riz. Is that what children are saying now? I don't know. But like, yeah, it's there. They're luscious, man. Go with that. Miserable Goat with an ounce of defense, level win MVP to go along with that Super Bowl ring. I'm down with it. And I know you and I we're going to do just fine for level wins MVP. AFAM find a better center than Myers. It would be nice. The Packers won't this year. I fully believe that they're rolling with Myers as the starting center. It's going to take something drastic in camp to upend that. And then if I'm also saying, does Taylor Swift play in Wisconsin this summer? If so, maybe Jason Kelsey will be in Wisconsin and then we can recruit him with our low travel budget. Yeah, unfortunately, he's still under contract. It would be nice, though. I mean, Travis Kelsey added to any offense would be mighty nice. And also, I don't think T Swift is coming back here anytime soon. All right, so I got 2 more reasons to go, so let me hit these next. Then I'll check in with the comments quick. Now, I said yesterday, like, I'm not going to do the super basic stuff, the super easy stuff, right? But we are covering, like, the Packers become bona fide contenders if they stay healthy, okay? And I'm not just talking about, like, well, no kidding, if Jordan Love tears his ACL, their chances are done. Yeah, no, obviously, okay? But what I am acknowledging is that over the course of the last few seasons, the Packers have had not just normal injuries, they've had some of the catastrophic variety. They've had question marks with injuries that some other teams haven't. Like, you got to figure David Bakhtiari, right? Chronicness with Christian Watson, the recurring with Eric Stokes, the what is even going on anymore with Jair Alexander, the broken captain status of Zadarius Smith that kept him out basically a whole season. So, I mean, even beyond that, right? The injuries have had their own various levels of timing. Think about last year. Rashawn Gary was working his way back from an ACL injury, and there's good reason to believe that his disappearance in the second half of the year was probably fatigue issues from coming back from that injury. Or Christian Watson coming back just in time for the playoffs, but obviously not being right. Or Aaron Jones finally getting right and propelling the entire offense. Or, in the same kind of relative era of Packers football, think back to years ago when the Packers were like limping into the postseason, right? And then I remember it's when Avengers Endgame was big, and like someone took that video of all the Avengers coming back from the dead and coming through the portals and like actually superimposed all the Packers' faces across the whole thing, right? For this huge gear up for the postseason, and then they lost. And it felt like everything was coming together, right? Everyone was regaining power, and then they lost anyway. Like, the Packers have kind of gone through in the last couple of years all the different ways that they can battle these injuries. And the thing is, for Green Bay this year, they're entering in a healthier spot than they have in many other seasons. They don't have a Rashawn Gary coming back from an ACL this year. Yeah, of course, you got to hope the best for Watson and Stokes, right? But there's not any key component of the team that's coming back from this massively debilitating injury that's going to miss time right from the get-go, that's going to have to work on it all year. Yes, there are Tom and Kraft, but LaFleur's optimism about that sounds well-reasoned. They should be back even before camp, hopefully even hits the midway point. So without those massive injuries to work their way back from, the Packers are starting off on a better injury front than they have in years. And maintaining that will be an incredible key to success for the season. All right, one more, then I'll see what you guys got to say. And just like yesterday, I'm predominantly ignoring the defense because the whole thing is changing. But the last big if for the Packers to be Super Bowl contenders before we get ourselves into training camp is definitely the defense. I've seen some calls for them like, if the Packers are going to be successful this year, it's got to be a top 10 defense, got to be top 5, whatever. No, see, I don't really care about that. Like, I don't really care at all about the Packers having to be a certain ranking. Also, did something just unplug? Yeah, something just unplugged itself. Please hold 1 second. See, all right, going live is fun sometimes, right? Had to plug it back in. All right, so I don't really care if they're top 10, top 5, whatever. I don't even care if they start off the season terribly. What I'm talking about is that second half stretch where they go against San Francisco, Miami, Seahawks, Saints, that kind of murderer's row that they've got in the back half of the schedule. Then they need to be an above average defense. They need to carry that through the postseason in order for this Packers team to win it all. And again, I don't care about top 10. What I want is for that feeling of doom. When Christian McCaffrey starts getting carry after carry, I need that feeling to go away. Or when a vet quarterback has amount of time and then just drops it in a bucket to a dude who's 10 yards in front of the zone, right in front of a Packers defender that just kind of has it happen in front of him, right? That is what has to go away. But one really key, important component of the defense that must improve is turnovers. Remember back when the Packers defense was known as bend but don't break? Right? You can give up 80 yards, but if you end the drive in a pick, who cares? Well, last few years, even some of the Petten years, they've been bend and then crack and then eventually break. Right? So here's the stats to go along with that. Packers finished 26th last year with only 1.1 takeaways per game. Their last 3 games of the year, it sank down to 0.7, one of the worst marks in the NFL over the final 3. And the truth is, if they had gotten just one more against Brock Purdy, then the talk around that game, probably a lot different than how we've been spending all offseason long. So we could talk about scheme, switching from 3 to 4, aggressive versus passive, whatever. But one thing that absolutely positively has to change, besides just tackling, is turnovers. And if they do it, they might just find themselves on top of the mountain at the end of the season. All right, y'all, what do you got to say? If I'm saying at Myers grocery store. See, I love these like lives. You want to find a better center at Myers. I get one on sale. If I'm saying, I wonder if Love is going to issue a stock buyback from shareholders and then notify for the team. If only there weren't rules against that, right? But I will say this, okay? We have good reason to believe that contract, while maybe it's not technically agreed to right now, I just fully believe like Sunday night, Monday, like that announcement is getting done. Don't be shocked if you see pictures of Love in the office on Sunday signing stuff. Like, we know he's already in town. So it's coming. It's coming. We also have reason to believe that like he is also still going to go through practice even without. Now, once we put pads on and once we get to games, if there still isn't a contract, yeah, it may be much more of a question mark, but it sounds like Love is going to practice, and it sounds like that contract is real close to actually being inked up, and Jordan Love being the quarterback of the present and the future. Steve, I want to look up more video on this Raylan Goforth, the linebacker. Yeah, fun UDFA. Spent some time at USC and Washington, was his collegiate career. The thing that I remember about when I was kind of diving into his game right after they signed him was like defensively, he's probably going to cost you some stuff. Like, he is a little bit of a risk taker at times. He's not the best tackler in the world either. But special teams looks like he can have a real contribution on, and that may be his sneaky way onto the 53. And also, like, as much as I've talked about Benny Sapp before, a player who frequently leaves his feet, that's Goforth too. And it's not as often as feet leaving, but like the abandonness that he has when he does go in for some larger tackles, it is a very fun watch. Like, so if you look up some more video on him, I think it will be quite enjoyable for you to focus on him, because he is a fun player, and he's the kind of player that really I could see making an impact on teams. That might be his sneak into the 53. And then Miserable Goat saying, climbing slowly but surely. Yeah, kind of goes for the Packers in this channel a little bit over the last month, right? All right, y'all. It is time for me to jump on out of here and go enjoy a Friday night. Hey, remember, if you want me to look up something specific for you at training camp, it all starts Monday. You want me to be your eyes there? Just leave a comment and I'll write it down. I already got two. I mean, I got someone asked me, I think it was Jagavi, looked for me to ask at Kalen King, see how he's keeping up in the D. Certainly. I know Stephen Smith asked me to keep track of the offensive line. How are you looking there? Especially run defense as well, just all the trenches, because I know Stephen's degree. So, like, if you've got things that you want me to specifically look for, just drop them in the comments and I'll report back to you every single day from training camp. It's what we're doing. I think it should be a great time starting on Monday. All right, everybody, go have a wonderful Friday. The real stuff begins on Monday. Man, I can't tell you how excited I am. It's time. So, all right, everybody, have a great weekend. And as always, go Pack Go.